Good afternoon again, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here. Welcome to the Board of Commissioners pre-agenda meeting for December 7th, 2020 at 3 p.m. All commissioners are present. County Manager, Clerk, Assistant Manager, Finance Director, and Attorney. I would ask you to check your mobile devices. If you have those, then be sure they're in silent mode during our meeting. And also ask you to, if you make presentation this afternoon, to please come to the podium. Be sure the microphone is on so that our clerk can get good recording. And between speakers, Madam Clerk, we're going to sanitize the podium, so give her just a moment in case you're coming and going during that time to do that for our own safety and protection. Thank you for remaining socially distant today and wearing your mask as you come and go. Thank you for your cooperation. Okay, gentlemen, you've received a agenda for this meeting. I would entertain a motion at this time to accept that agenda. Thank you. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. I believe that's all of us, Madam Clerk. Presentations this afternoon, Pet of the Month. That would normally be coming by our Animal Services Director, and I would congratulate the Stumps on a new baby. And I think maybe the new baby's getting a little checkup this afternoon, or maybe another baby. I don't know. Do they have more than one, Madam Clerk?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Lindsay did give birth to her daughter, Lila Charlotte, and Caitlin Animal Services is closed on Monday because they work on Saturday, but yes, her son is getting a little checkup in Asheville today, so I'm presenting for them. This is just a placeholder for the monthly presentation of a dog or cat in need of a forever home, and just wanted to make you aware that there are some fostering and adoption events coming up later this month, and would encourage you and the public to check them out on Facebook and adopt or foster a pet if you can.
All right. Thank you, Madam Clerk. All right. This brings us to item number 4, scheduled public hearings. This will come from Community Development Zoning Map Amendment CMA 2020-04. And we'll hear from our Deputy Manager Planning Director, Scott Carpenter. Afternoon, Scott.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to see everyone today, and congratulations to all of you all who won election and your new positions as Chair and Vice Chair. I look forward to working with you this year. This request, staff has received a rezoning application from Lacey and Ashley Williams to rezone a parcel of land totaling 9.8 acres. The property is owned by WITH AWD LLC. The request is to rezone the vacant property from its current zoning of Residential 3 to the Industrial Zoning District. The applicant would like to establish a contractor's office and a storage yard at this location for their existing asphalt striping business, Hickory Sealing and Striping. The applicant has owned and operated the asphalt striping business for the past 14 years. Over the years, the business has done very well. The applicants are now needing to expand their current operation. The subject parcel is currently vacant. The applicants propose to construct a large metal structure on the property that will house several offices as well as a truck equipment repair garage. The company's equipment and vehicles will be stored on site as well. The parcel is vacant and it has no 911 address at this time. The parcel is located within a WS4 protected area water supply watershed. Records indicate that the property can be served by public water as well as on-site septic. The subject parcel has approximately 800 linear feet of frontage on Lake Roadhiss. As far as the surrounding area goes, and Scott, I don't know if you have existing land use map to show us. Thank you. So the predominant zoning for this area is R3, and the adjoining parcels to the east is also zoned industrial, and it's owned by Burke County. The county property has an existing convenience site, so that would be East Burke Convenience Site that's right beside this property. The Briarwood subdivision is located just across the road from Roadhis Road to the south, and you can see it there with the circles, so it has an interesting design and open space mix there. To the north is a 131-acre wooded parcel belonging to Duke Energy, and you can see from the existing land use map that scattered around the area are double wide residential, some single wide, but predominantly single family. And most of the things that are shown as white or vacant is actually forest lands. Green is agricultural lands that would be hay or crops or trees or something like that, nurseries. As far as the conformity with the comprehensive plan goes, the current land use plan, for Burke County is the 2016 to 2030 Blueprint Burke Strategic Land Use Plan. The subject parcel is located in the secondary growth area. The secondary growth areas have many of the same attributes as a primary growth areas, such as infrastructure, utilities, and transportation corridors. One of the fundamental policies of the land use plan is to allow and promote multiple types of economic development opportunities. So these would include commercial, institutional, as well as some industrial development that can be expected in these areas. As far as the conformity with the Burke County zoning ordinance goes, as stated before, the current zoning district for this parcel is R3 residential, as is most other parcels in the community. The current zoning map shows the zoning for the subject parcel and the surrounding area. The subject parcel's frontage on State Road 1611, which is a major collector, and its close proximity to existing industrial zoning allow for consideration of this rezoning request. The Planning Board did meet on October 22nd, 2020 to hear and deliberate the rezoning request, and they voted 5-0 with 1 abstaining to recommend approval to this board to approve this ZMA 2020-04. I'm happy to answer any questions you gentlemen may have.
Okay, thank you, Scott. Any questions for Scott on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I have 2 or 3, and Scott, you may not know the answer to the first one. Do you know what kind of paint and material they use in striping these roads? Is it I think the real question is it a water cleanup paint or is it a chemical cleanup paint?
Most of them are all water-based paints nowadays. I don't know the exact composition, though, sir, of what they're made up of. We would find out, though, when a new industry comes in and we approve it, we send out for comment to Diener and other places that may permit businesses or things that have contaminants and stuff, you know. Also, emergency management would want to know those things as well as the fire marshal and what's stored on site.
Well, the purpose or that question is that there's no public county sewer line there. And you're less than a mile from the Roadhis Lake to the north. I don't think it'd ever give anybody any trouble to the south, just simply the way the road's constructed. It'd be hard for any runoff to cross through both the ditches of the road and so forth. And just trying to make sure we don't get something to bite us in the hiney later, and make sure we're not depositing chemicals or whatever. And do you know at this time that how they will handle the runoff when they're washing those pieces of equipment and
So it's a very fair question, and these things would be looked at during site plan review. So if we have anything like oil or anything that's stored in any quantity, then we usually require pounding or something of that nature so that it can't leave the site prior to cleanup. On this particular thing, we have not received any specific details.
And the other question that also relates to that, any idea or suggestion or estimate of how much actual water will be consumed there weekly, monthly, in operating that business? And it's the same reason for the question, just to make sure that we don't end up with a problem on somebody else's property.
Should be minimal. How much is actually used there? It's mainly just a storage yard for the business, and the actual activities will take place off-site on another site as they're doing construction. So it's really a contractor's yard.
It's an excellent place for a business right there, just good visibility and all, so.
Yes, sir.
But I did have a little bit of concern about make sure that they don't use enough water and or chemicals or a combination of both, that they don't end up in Rhodes Lake or somebody's property and we have issues later.
Those things will be looked at, sir, during site plan or as soon as they tell us exactly what the nature of the business is in detail.
Thank you. That's the only questions I have.
Thank you.
All right, gentlemen, any other questions, comments for Scott at this time? All right, hearing none, this item will remain on the agenda.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
Scott.
gentlemen. Have a nice day.
All right, this brings us to item number 5, consent agenda. We have a number of consent agenda items. First one being the 2021 commission appointments. And gentlemen, you will see those in your package. Any question or comment at this time? You see the current appointments. Anybody know right now they want to make any changes or any comments about any of these appointments?
Mr. Chairman, I did want to bring it to your attention and to the board's attention. I did not get a hold of Taylor Dillinger at the COG, and the Clean Water Act and the associated one with that, excuse me, I haven't got there yet. But anyhow, those two items have not met in close a year, and the last conversation, which has been probably 6 months ago, it was my understanding that those would probably be dissolved simply because all the counties and the cities have done such a good job. There's just not a need for the committee anymore, which is super successful.
So is that the Unifor air quality?
Yeah. And what I was going to say is, if you give me a chance, I'll try to get a hold of him tomorrow, and I'll call Kay and tell her, and if I'll be happy to continue to serve on them if they continue, but it doesn't need to be on there if it doesn't exist. That's
Right.
is the point.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or concerns on the appointments? Anybody? All right, thank you. This item will remain on the agenda. We'll finalize it at our at our meeting. Item number 2, NCACC legislative goals voting delegates, and you'll find this also, gentlemen. This will be a virtual meeting, and we need to appoint a delegate. Commissioner Carswell, can you give us any insight on how this meeting may go in its virtual state?
No, sir, not really at this time. The goals have been solidified in this past week's meeting at the Legislative Goals Committee. And I need to send those to y'all so you can review them. But the only thing that you'll have to do now is appoint a voting delegate. Like I say, it will be by Zoom, and everybody will vote. The people that are allowed to vote their names will be on the Zoom meeting, and they will be counted as they vote.
Anybody just dying to do that? If not, I would suggest that maybe myself and Scott they're looking for an alternate, I believe, as well. And maybe between the two of us, one of us can be available when we need to be. Is that suitable with everyone? Does that seem reasonable, Mr. Carswell?
Yes, sir.
You're familiar with that, how that's working? Okay, so if no objection, then we'll leave that on the agenda. Hearing none, we'll move to item number 3, adoption of rules of procedure for 2021. And I hope you've had a chance to refresh your memory on those. Madam Clerk, if I understood all the notes correctly, there's no really changes to what we have other than I think maybe some mention of the virtual meeting process, or is it in there at all?
That is not in there. It could be added if you wanted. The only change I've made is to the date and the signature block.
Any reason that we need to add that in our rules of procedure? What's your thoughts, or Counselor, any thoughts from you on that subject?
I've already.
I am unfamiliar with what you're referring to. If you could give me
Our rules of procedures currently do not have any reference to virtual meetings.
Yes, it does.
Madam Clerk?
I did prepare essentially what we adopted in that resolution earlier in the year, but I think the thinking was that we would just address that if and when another situation arose, and hopefully there won't be another one that requires a governor's declaration of emergency.
I'm certainly not indicating we can't operate with the rules we got. I just posed the question, do we want to say anything specifically about them? I'm not necessarily proposing that we do, but that's what I was getting at, JR. Do you think these rules need to specifically say anything about the odds of a executive order and the need for virtual meetings and all that kind of thing?
I don't think it would hurt, because there may be needs for virtual meetings, even if the governor doesn't declare a statewide state of emergency. Floods, hurricanes, those sort of things could always.
Would statute even allow that? I mean, doesn't statute require us to meet open and public without executive order requiring otherwise or allowing otherwise?
Well, I believe that emergency meetings would allow you to do that, but it's got to be it could be a local declared emergency.
Okay, well, why don't we, yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I thought, and Kay or JR, either one, might need to look that up, but I thought we did an amendment to the rules that included being able to meet virtually or by Zoom or whatever. And it was my understanding that became part of our rules. I don't know if I read more into it, Madam Clerk, than I should, but I thought we had to change those rules in order to have those meetings.
I think that was a resolution, wasn't it, of some kind?
It was several months ago, and I can look back at that.
So we included that as part of our ordinance or not?
I'd have to look back and see exactly what the wording was, but we did adopt a resolution pertaining to virtual meetings when they're declared by the governor. Not sure we can do it locally.
Well, the reason I'm saying that, I think I went home and put that, when we got that sheet, I put it with my rules book, and I didn't check it before we came tonight, but I thought it was added to the rules, but I may be wrong, so.
Yes.
If I may, that was a resolution. It was not added to the rules, and it was based on the governor's executive order at that time, and we've had 3 executive orders since that particular time. There is a legislative goal to pass some legislation regarding virtual meetings that would do some clarifications, but I personally don't think it needs to be part of the rules, because we do have a resolution in place that allows us to have virtual meetings when necessary, based on any new executive order that the governor comes out with.
Okay, well, if I might just ask then that, Madam Clerk, you and JR just kind of confirm all that, and if that be the case, we'll leave our rules as they are and vote on them in that fashion unless you guys bring us back something else at our meeting. Okay, is that okay with everybody? Okay, all right. That item will remain on the agenda as slated. Item number 4, this also comes from the clerk, resolution establishing our Board of Commissioners 2021 meeting schedule. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request that we do annually to adopt a resolution setting the board's annual meeting schedule. I must say it was a bit interesting writing this, trying to figure out what we're going to do with COVID still rearing its ugly head. But basically, same story as we have been. We've got our pre-agendas on the first Tuesday of the month. I did say that we can meet in person or by Zoom if we are still under executive order to give us the greatest amount of flexibility. Sets the regular meeting on the third Tuesday at 6 o'clock in this room. Establishes budget meetings for Tuesday, May 25th at 2 p.m., Thursday, May 27th at 2 p.m., and Tuesday, June 1st at 4 p.m. after the pre-agenda. And those could be done virtually or in this room if we are still under an executive order. I did not include a reference to the annual association meetings. Thought we might address that when we know a little bit more about how they're going to be held. And I thought I might amend the resolution just to add a whereas that we do stream our meetings live on YouTube just for information as part of the resolution. Be happy to try to entertain any questions you might have about the proposed meeting schedule for next year.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions for Kay on this matter? All right, hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 5, also from Madam Clerk, approval of extract of minutes for closeout of CDBG waterline project. Gentlemen, you remember I believe it was last month, we considered this item and discussed it at length about needing to come back with this extract for that. So, Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. This is a request to approve the portion of the minutes for the public hearing we held in November for the closeout of the Highway 18 South and Rawney Road infrastructure grant. That's the next step in the process, is to approve these minutes, and the manager has one form to sign, and as soon as we get these approved and that form signed, we'll send that off to the Department of Commerce, and we'll wait for them to make sure that we've done everything and tell us our grant is closed out.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any question, comment on this matter? Hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. All right, Madam Clerk, item number 6, reappointment and removal, Blue Ridge Community Action.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Seat number 1 is at large on the Blue Ridge Community Action Board of Directors, and it is occupied by Mr. Terry Elliott, and he has served on this board since 1999. Mr. Elliott is not seeking reappointment, and therefore, sadly, we are requesting his removal. and I will prepare a service plaque for Mr. Elliott for the board. Seat number 3 is at large and is occupied by Mr. James Smith, who is seeking reappointment, and the term is for 2 years. So we're requesting that we remove Mr. Elliott's name from the roster and to reappoint Mr. James Smith to the Blue Ridge Community Action Board of Directors.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any question, comment on this item? Hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 7, reappointments to the Tourism Development Authority. Madam Clerk.
Thank you. This is a request to reappoint Samantha Reed to seat number 4, Collectors of Occupancy Tax, Diane Riles, seat number 6, Travel and Tourism at Large, and Mitch Curse, seat number 8, Collector of Occupancy Taxes, to the Tourism Development Authority for 2-year terms ending December 31st, 2022.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments on this item? Hearing none, Madam Clerk, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 8, reappointments to the Rutherford College.
Planning Board. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a request to reappoint some folks to the Rutherford College Planning Board and Board of Adjustment for the ETJ. The county appoints 2 members to that board. The terms of appointment for Doug Eichard, seat number 1, the primary member, and Glenn Van Horn, seat number 2, the alternate, end December 15th. Both members are seeking reappointment, and the terms are for 3 years.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any comment, question on this item for Rutherford College Planning Board and Board of Adjustment? Being here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item number 9, this item comes from our Finance Director, resolution designating deputy finance officers. This is in relation to our jail operation, I believe. Margaret?
Good afternoon. This is in relation to the inmate commissary account, and currently we are trying to work with them, and I've worked with Captain Huntley, and we feel like this is a workable solution in order to meet the state statutes. There is a need to release funds to inmates transferring to other detention centers at various times of the day and often on weekends as well. And it's impractical for myself or the county manager to be able to sign checks at all those times. Therefore, we request you approve the resolution 2020-29 in order to be compliant with General Statute 159-28.
All right, gentlemen, you've had this in your information. Any question or concern about this item for Margaret?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple of questions. The first one, Margaret, is how many such incidents happens per month? How many of these incidents that's created that needs to have money transferred to wherever the prisoner or retainee is going?
I'd say on average it's somewhere from 30 to 40 times.
Ooh. Second question, since all that has to be ordered or everything we know in advance they're going to be moved, why don't we just send it with them and quit involving so many of our employees in this operation? Can they not just take that money with them?
It has to be in check form to go to the next agency, and that is the purpose, to try to get it to where we can have them ready as often as possible to go with them. Oftentimes, and Captain Huntley and I have talked a lot about this, if I say it wrong, correct me, but oftentimes they'll call when they're on the road, or when they get there, let's say, oh, by the way, we found out we need another inmate too, can you go ahead and release him? So it can be very fluid. You'd like to think those would be scheduled well in advance and they could have time to be prepared, but they don't always.
This question is just for information, has nothing to do with what's on this paper, and what we're asked to do is just a way of getting information. What's the top 3 reasons that somebody is transferred out of our jail to somewhere else, which creates this?
They would receive a longer sentence, which would mean they would transfer, say, to a State Department of Correction facility.
Okay.
They would have charges that they would need to move to another county facility, or it could be that we have overflow and would need to send them to another facility. I would think that's the top 3 reasons.
That would be correct.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
are we talking about just one person signing or dual people signing?
It's a number of folks.
Cool.
So not one person is going to, all right, thank you.
Yes.
You're talking about like a counter signature on
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Yes, there'd always be 2 signatures, which is part of the statute.
So you got a signer and a witness, more or less?
Yes, that's one of the reasons for
Yeah.
making sure there's enough people to take care of that and not inhibit business.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, I butted in before I was recognized, but that's fine.
That's good. All right. Any other question, comment about this item? All right, hearing none, that item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Margaret.
Thank you.
Item number 10, Jcpc approval of changes to their bylaws, and AJ was not feeling too well. I don't see her, so Madam Clerk, you going to do that?
I will. This is a request to approve Jcpc's bylaws that were recently amended. The primary changes are in Section 6, meetings, and it permits the use of electronic meetings during the declaration of a state of emergency as declared by a governor or the General Assembly, and allows the council to hold 6 meetings per year instead of every other month.
All right, thank you, Madam Clerk. Any question on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, if I might add, most of the changes on these sheets is due to COVID, and a lot of the money that was normally targeted spend for traveling was not spent, and they're asking, obviously, through this procedure to be able to keep the money, but fly it somewhere. Other than we did have a new article added to the, as Kay covered, she's already covered that.
Any other question, comment on this item? Seeing, hearing none, all right, Madam Clerk, this will remain on the consent agenda.
Thank you.
And we'll move on to item number 11, jail medical services contract, and we'll hear from Sheriff Steve Weston. Sheriff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. This is just a continuation of a contract we started 6 months ago, continuation of jail medical provider contract for additional 6 months from January 1st of 2021 until June 30th, 2021. The contract has no other changes, and the price remained the same at $26,500 per month for a total of $159,000.
Okay, thank you, Sheriff. Any questions or comments on this item to the Sheriff? Was this just mainly to get it to our calendar or fiscal year end, or is that kind
Yeah,
of?
we weren't sure what we're going to have as far as numbers and things. The contract would need to be changed because of significant numbers of inmates. So we purposely did this.
Anything else on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I'll ask one. Sheriff, this is a continuation of last year's contract, right?
Yes.
I guess my question would be, if we wanted to see or test the waters, if we let those out for bids, you think you would gain anything by it?
Well, obviously, we went through a pretty detailed bid process to come up with the original contract. I would say, and Captain can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we're very pleased with this medical provider. He has done a tremendous job. In addition to things that's not in the contract, he has helped the sheriff's office and the county do at no charge. So he was the one that we chose initially, and I don't see any reason to change the contract at this time.
I remember the process well. I think we went up a nickel because we wanted individual servings for the, so in one other side question to it, comparing to other jails, we're in line. It's a good rate.
Yes, and now what you were talking about was a food contract. That's different. This is a medical contract that provide medical services.
Yeah,
He is in line, and in fact, he was not the most expensive, but I think he was middle of the road, and he does the contracts for many other agencies around us. Everybody that has him that we talked with spoke very highly. He comes well received.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions, comments? All right, here none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Sheriff.
Thanks, sir.
Item number 12, Tax Department Release Refund Report. We'll hear from our tax administrator, Danny. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. Refunds on the tax system, we had the releases for the amount of $546.31. We had no rebills, so our net release is $546.31. We have $275.86 in refunds and no vehicle tax refunds.
All right, thank you, Danny. Any question, comment on this item? Hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Item 13, Tax Department Tax Collection Report for November 2020. Danny?
Okay. We had property tax collection of a little over $32.5 million, which is 73.61% of our budget. Motor vehicle tax, $2.1 million, which is 46.89% of our budget. The two together give us 71.10% of our budget. Delinquent taxes, we're at 61.04% collected. Late list penalty, 76.25% collected. Property tax against the levy, not the budget, we are at 71.51% collected.
All right, thank you, Danny. Any question or comment for Danny on this item? Hearing none, this item will remain on the consent agenda. Thank you, Danny.
Thank you, John.
This brings us to item number 6 on our agenda, items for decision. We have several items to discuss today. Item number 1, Community Development, Abatement, and Demolition Order 3021 at Perkins Avenue. This will be presented by our zoning administrator, Bradley Kirkley. Afternoon, Bradley.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just to give you a quick rundown of the request, I come to you on behalf of code enforcement as well as building inspections this afternoon. The matter is in regards to 3021 AB Perkins Avenue. In short, it is a duplex, probably built as a single-family home, separated into 2 units. The structure itself was condemned by Steve Holden and posted as unsafe back in October of 2019. Within multiple requests to the property owner, who is Eric Bird, for feedback, requests on updates, due process to either demolish the structure or pull proper permits to renovate it to make it into a due living area. Those have fallen by the wayside, which has led to why we have put this off for the amount of time that what we've had. We've had multiple correspondence with him by email, phone calls, but really we're getting no positive feedback and continued complaints from citizens in the area. In the packet and report that was presented to you, I think there's probably some photos that will come up. The write-up is a synopsis of start to finish as we got to this point. Basically, we, through building inspections or myself, have not been inside of the unit. So is it beyond repair? That's debatable, I guess, if the owner wanted to delegate enough funds to do that. There's a photo there of the structure. The primary concern is from neighboring citizens. There in the area. That sits at a corner as you drive into the area. Folks up and down from 3 different sides drive by this one unit on the regular. And basically because nothing's being repaired there to it, it's set in its current state since 2019. The yard did get mowed at one time. That's about as far as the cleanup remedy or repairs happened. So what we did reach out to, I myself reached out to a demolition contractor to get a rough estimate and a ballpark idea. I think within my packet, I submitted a $20,000 cost. That rough estimate came back at $12,500, so we are underneath that. Ballpark tax value lists this property at about $58,000. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them. In short, we're requesting you to give us the feedback and the allowance to move forward with the demolition of this structure and get it cleared up so that the continued reports from the citizens don't continue.
All right, thank you, Bradley. Gentlemen, the questions for Bradley on this item?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple. Bradley,
Yes.
it's a brick house. Is it just not restorable, or is it, you know, I'm having trouble seeing why it just needs to be demolished when
Sure.
it could be a home for somebody for, I don't know what it costs to do it, but anyhow, just,
Correct. And as I said, we, through staff, have not been inside of the unit itself. I do not know if it even got floors on the inside. I couldn't answer that for you. I would think that if it was a quick repair in the allowance within the condemnation order back in 2019, we gave the option to pull proper permits to repair it or to demo it. He sought to do neither one. So really, it's just a vacant and dilapidated structure. The cost of demo did go up because it is a brick structure. I think had it been wood, it would be less than that, but it is primarily brick. But as far as on the inside, what the scope of work would need to be done, I couldn't answer that to you. I can tell you the windows are busted out and quite a bit of activity takes place over there in that area. So,
my second question would be, after we demolish it and hauled off and the land is ready to market, will it bring as much as it takes to demolish it? Will a vacant lot bring $20,000?
Interestingly enough, the immediate neighbor located there to the rear of this property has sought for several years to purchase this site from the landowner at fair value to it and would not get feedback from him for a sale option. I think at our cost, if we were able to get it for 15 or less for the demo, as referenced within tax, I think it would certainly fetch more than that. So I don't know that we would necessarily go backwards, but the nuisance is the problem.
Other comments, questions? So basically, if we were to move forward with this and authorize the demolition, all we're going to gain is a clear lot with a lien on the property.
That in sense, correct, yes.
So, Counselor, how would that work? When and if, or how would we ever become owner of this establishment?
Well, assuming that Mr. Byrd has continued to pay his taxes on it, that would certainly be the easiest option to foreclose for taxes. But once we have a lien on the property for the cost of demolition, we are able to foreclose that and sell the property at a sheriff's sale for that amount that's owed to us, as long as we get that amount back. The sheriff would then, it would be a sale to the public.
All right, thank you. Other questions, comments on this matter?
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to ask a bad question. I started to ask it a while ago, but I decided not to. But I think I need to ask this question. Is it by chance, Bradley, that this guy is deceased or in a hospital or long-term
Long-term care facility?
care?
I don't think he qualifies for any of the three. I just think he doesn't want to go to his property. I can say for a fact that when we held the condemnation order, we posted the site. The original deadline ran its course. He did not attend anything to the hearing. I did reach out and was finally able to get him to reply to an email that I was able to get from a neighboring citizen who had access to one. That is the only feedback and comment that I was able to get. And at that point, he wasn't even aware that his own property had been posted as unsafe, which leads me to believe he had not ridden by his own site.
Is he a county resident?
He is.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I got another question, but I'm going to ask the attorney sometime next week.
Okay.
I'll call JR, but just to double check on it. Thank you, Bradley.
Thank you. To answer your question, Mr. Chairman, he receives mail at a post office box in Drexel.
Other questions, comments? Hearing none, this item will remain on the items for decision. Thank you, Bradley.
Thank you, sir.
This brings us to item number 2. This will come from the county manager, follow-up to our budget process, and also a note that there are some other data that staff would like to obtain before we act on this. So as part of his discussions, he would like for us to consider moving this to a recessed meeting on January the 5th, which would be following our pre-agenda meeting for action. So today's matter would just be hearing some discussion, kind of some introduction into what we're considering here. So with that, Mr. Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. You may remember a while back when we were adopting the current year's budget, we said we would hold off on COLA and some other things until we saw how the course of the year ran. Of course, you had all the gloom and doom coming out of Raleigh that you needed to budget 25% less. So far, we have not seen anything to that extent. To say we're flat or just slightly ahead on sales tax would be a fairly accurate statement. I would like to wait until we get one more sales tax report in the first few days of January to be able to provide that to you, to show you the trend that we're seeing in sales tax revenues. And what I'm asking you to contemplate is providing a 1.5% COLA that would be effective on January 9th. So that's the start of a new pay period, which makes it a lot easier for our payroll people to put that into the system and not go back and have a half pay period and have to recalculate. But then there's also, during this period of time, you may have heard some towns or counties talked about giving hazard pay to their employees, and I discussed this with Rhonda and I discussed it with Margaret, and I just could not find a way that I was comfortable and find it equitable to pick who does and who doesn't. Some of our employees were not allowed to come to work because of the governor's order, and they were deemed non-essential. Our folks have been out there, and to my knowledge, have not really missed a beat. I mean, our convenience sites, if you go out there, you see some of our fellows out there, they are certainly the group that can easily get this. And they came to work like champs. Our EMS, our sheriff's deputies, our people in the jail staff, our people over at the health department that have carried on like champions. So I would ask the possibility that y'all could consider a 1% one-time payment for all county employees as part of this. And Margaret can help you if we need to on where we are in the budget and how we're positioned to carry this out. But again, I'd like to get one more sales tax report that should be within the first few days of January that I can bring back to you on the 5th to allow you to have that to help you with your decision.
All right, thank you, Brian. Any question or comment at this point on this matter? Brian, are you at a state where, how would the 1% be calculated? Do you know that at this point?
That would be off of their 2020 earnings.
Would that be a one-time thing?
Yes, one time.
Paid out at one time or over the course of one time?
One time.
Any other question, comment about this matter?
Mr. Chairman, it makes a little bit of sense to do that, but I will say one other thing. On one of the networks last night, they talked about how fast they were going to get this vaccine distributed. So if that gets fixed sooner, that you can do this by, a first quarter or whatever, you can always change it if you need to change it back. So I don't see that it's a great implication to us to do it.
All right, any other question or comment at this time? Hearing none, we will recess this particular item to the January special meeting that we'll have immediately following our pre-agenda, and we'll act on it at that time once we get some more data then, okay?
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Brian. Then item number 2, This item will come from our Emergency Communications Center Director, Brock Hall. Brock, come on up. And this is an item relating to some communications equipment, and also this item, staff is asking that we wait for decision to that same January 5th recessed meeting so they can gather just a little bit more information. But he will give us some introduction and discussion at this time so that we'll have something to consider. Hey, Brock.
How are we doing today?
Good, thank you.
I appreciate you letting me talk about this today. This situation came up over the last couple of years. A little bit of background on this request. We have some of you may know we've talked about CAD in the past. CAD is our computer-aided dispatch program. It goes in line with our records management system that the Sheriff's Department and the other law enforcement agencies use for record-keeping purposes, and also goes in line with the jail management system that's used at the jail. It's one big suite. All the software interacts together. That's the best way to do it for our purposes. Our current vendor we've had since 2004. This vendor has been, the product has been bought and rebought several times. Every couple of years, a new company takes over. When this last company took over in 2018, they made it clear that the current product that we use for all three applications is not their flagship product anymore. They're not selling it. They're not, service and support is still in place, but they're not providing any further upgrades or updates to it. It's not NextGen 911 compatible. The big indicator to us came when they advised us that they were not going to update the operating system for the software beyond Microsoft 2012, Windows 2012, which is obviously, it's an 8-year-old operating system anyway. When they said they're not going to upgrade it past Windows 2012, that went out of support in 2018, and it goes out of extended support in 2023. So January 2023 is kind of our deadline. We need to figure something out. If we have a failure on the server side, we're going to be out of luck. We're going to lose a lot of information. We're going to be back to writing on pen and paper everything. That's not just us. That's the jail. That's RMS, and that's communications. Everything starts with communications. So last year we started interviewing some vendors and some options to see where we could go. We attended a vendor show. We invited some companies in for demos. We did do some demos to find out what other products were out there. We did select a vendor, and we included all the other agencies in the county as well. This affects Morgan and Public Safety. It affects Valdez Police and Fire. It affects Drexel Police, not just our county agencies. So we did these demos. We got information from 5 different vendors. We selected a vendor that we felt best meets our needs, and that's the vendor we would eventually like to bring forward to the board. We wanted to include this in the budget time this past year. COVID kind of changed our plans a bit. The timeline breaks down to some of these programs take about 18 months to implement, and that's why I'm bringing it to you now. We don't want to get to a situation where we run out of support on our current product before we have a replacement in place. So that's why we would like to get something done as soon as possible. I'll open any questions you may have of me at this point. Anything else anybody else wants to add to it?
Just the current thing has lasted, what, 16 years, and how long do you think the new one would last?
I think this, the product that we're recommending, there's really no virtual foreseeable end date in this product. You buy a suite like this, you want to get 15 to 20 years out of it. We've gotten 17 out of our current product. This product that we're looking at is a top-of-the-line product, and the company is a very reputable company, and they know what they're doing. I don't anticipate that they're going to be going out of business anytime soon or selling out to anybody else anytime soon. I have faith in that. I don't foresee us, hesitantly I say, because I don't like to deal in absolutes, but I really don't see us needing to purchase another suite while any of us are in this, still working here. I think this could be the last one we ever buy, but that's my personal opinion. This product is that good, and it's that top of the line. I don't think we're going to have an issue. And the pricing changes from day to day. It's another reason why we wanted to bring it to the board. We do have some incentives tied to calendar year and whatnot, but beyond that, that's another reason why I wanted to get it before the board sooner rather than later, so we can make an informed decision and decide what needs to be done.
All right, thank you, Brock. Gentlemen, you've heard this information. Any questions for Brock at this time?
Mr. Chairman, I have a couple. I didn't study that real good because mine said this would be taken from, item would be removed from the agenda, and then the new one I got today, it's added back in. But one of the questions I had, in a 2-week period, you think, or 3, you'll have the lowest bid and be able to present the lowest bid for this?
I have numbers now that we could. I do have some. The product we're looking at isn't the lowest bidder.
Million.
I'm sorry.
You said a little over $1 million?
I didn't say that, but I think we'd come in a shade under that. But
Okay.
I don't think I did. Really.
Well, the second and probably the most important question is it in the budget?
No, sir. That's like I tried to, we wanted to get it in this year. It didn't happen this year.
It is not in the budget?
It's not in the budget this year. A portion of it is 911 eligible. Probably roughly 40% of it, by our calculations, would be eligible for reimbursement from the 911 board. I'm trying to get confirmation from the board, but they've had my stuff since April and they haven't responded yet. I talked to them again last week. They still don't have an answer for me, but by our calculations, I think, regardless of the vendor we chose, a little less than half of it, I'm going to say, would probably be reimbursable.
Mr. Chairman, that prompts a third question. If we look at this and approve it, when would the budget need to start from the Burke County? Would it be done before next year's budget?
As far as when the first payment is due, I believe the plan would be to do it all up front and try to get something on this budget year.
I'm sorry, I could not hear you.
I'm sorry. If we made a decision now, I would say it would be appropriated now and paid out of this budget year. Am I incorrect?
In order to approve the contract, we'd need to budget the full amount of the contract.
That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
All right, so as follow-up to that, Margaret, even though we may budget it, if it's an 18-month process, would we anticipate actually paying those funds out over the next 18 months in some varying form of
Correct.
911 reimbursement? And I think you mentioned other municipals would they be paying part of these funds as well, or
Not to our benefit. They're paying for their own parts of it.
that they're responsible for their own pieces of it?
Right. We wouldn't have to deal with their contracts or anything at all.
Other questions, comments?
Brock, how many separate databases and servers are we using right now?
3 separate ones, I believe. Each module has its own database. The proposal is for a single server, single database to go to that. But right now we have different ones.
Would that include a backup?
Well, we have another backup too. We have a disaster recovery server as well. So
Would the new suite have a backup?
it would be cloud-based.
Cloud-based?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Would, in your opinion, you say it lasts a number of years, as we grow, does it grow with us, or
Absolutely.
what did the company say?
Absolutely. This is, like I said, this is top of the line stuff right now, and this suite is built to evolve and grow.
I mean, two or three advantages of having the new suite.
There's things that are not available into the current suite, depending on the module you're looking at. And like I said, Next Gen 911, things that we can't get now. We can get enhanced location services through 911 calls. We can get single operator, single login for things like DCI. RMS, JMS, NCWare, all the state programs will interact with this program as well. We got the ability to advanced location services on officers depending on their radio. We'll be able to track radios and not just AVLs and vehicles. So when an officer gets out of a vehicle and runs down the road, we can still track them on the road instead of their vehicle. The jail management suite has biometrics and fingerprint identification, plus it has modules that we don't currently have in place for like offender work detail or offender violations. Those things I believe the jail's keeping track of on paper now. This suite's going to be able to track that. The RMS suite has a data analysis and a crime statistical tracking piece to it, which is really the core of RMS. You know, it can map out crime trends and reporting profiles, while in real time. Also, and all three suites interact. It's, when it's going to cut down on booking time in the jail, because when an officer completes the report in the field, that data automatically gets uploaded to the jail. So when the jail comes in, they enter the person's name, and most of the sheets already filled out on them. They don't have to do a separate intake in the jail, and vice versa. If for some reason the reporting officer didn't do that report in the field yet, when they do intake in the jail, they enter that information in the jail management system. When the officer goes to do his arrest report, it's going to pre-populate everything. They're all going to talk to each other. We're going to know everything Morgan has, everything Valdez has. They're going to know the stuff we have. There's numerous advantages to it.
Does it enhance response times?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And all outside agencies have allocated funds, you said, for their share of this project?
They've been making arrangements with their own boards, and they've been budgeting their pieces. Their pieces are not as intense as ours, because obviously we have the full cost of JMS, but RMS, each agency is allocating their own share of that.
So we're the host for the suite. Do the other agencies, are they able to go in and see what they need to see and do what they need to do?
Depending on permissions, we can set it up any way we like, but yeah, we host it.
You foresee giving permissions?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's really the goal here, is all of us to be sharing information as much as possible.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, just a question or two as well. As far as ongoing cost, service cost in these contracts, what does that look like compared to what we have now?
As far as the ongoing service costs?
Yes.
It varies from vendor to vendor. The vendor we selected, you get the first year of service and support free. So you got first year go live. They also offer prepaid service and support for up to 5 years at a time. So what you can do is you can lock in a support rate ahead of time, and then you don't get an increase over 5 years. So you're really getting only getting an increase every 5 years. You're not having to do it every year. The service and support is a little bit higher than the others, but once again, we're paying more for the entire suite than the others. Plus, we just feel like it's the right one for us. And that, there's some incentive side with the service and support too, that they come and go. If we sign at a certain time, we might get a benefit, depending on.
Okay. And Brock, also, are there many counties using this or signing up for this particular product?
It's coming into North Carolina. It's working its way in. North Carolina Highway Patrol just got it. Department of Public Safety Corrections just got it. Davidson County just got it. Randolph County has it. So yeah, there's some that are taking advantage of it.
So you feel comfortable it's got a proven record and it's not new technology that we're going to be debuting?
Absolutely. This company doesn't make garbage. This is good stuff, in my opinion.
All right. Thanks, Brock.
Mm-hmm.
One more question, Brock. Somebody will eventually ask, do we have to update any equipment in vehicles or anything like that?
Yeah, there'll be some. I don't think there'll be any remarkable cost to that. Just standard, the AVLs and things are in place, MDTs. But it's basically I don't know that there'd be any real equipment upgrades, updates. I think
Okay.
most of the stuff we have in place would generally work. Nothing really comes to mind significant.
Okay, current equipment and current vehicles will adapt to this suite.
I believe so. I don't think there would be a significant.
You feel comfortable with
I
that?
feel pretty comfortable with
Okay.
that.
Other questions? Margaret, do you anticipate by January 5th being able to kind of outline the finances of this project going forward?
Yes, sir. We're just waiting on the updated quotes and information, working to make sure we've met all the bid requirements for it. And then Brock will give me the numbers and we'll be able to come back to you with the financial information.
Okay, thank you. Other comments? All right, with that being heard, then we'll treat this as we treated the last item. We'll put it on a session agenda for following our pre-agenda meeting, a special meeting on January 5th to hear this item for decision at that time. Thank you, Brock.
Thank you.
All right, this brings us to item 7, reports. Anybody got anything they want to say at this point? All right. Any other items for discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this maybe is off the wall, but something that bothers me is the, and I don't know how we solve this problem, but I'd like to know how many jailers we're short right now in the jail while the sheriff is here. And with this COVID thing, I don't know where we go with jailers, but how many are we short right now, Steve, at the new jail?
I think the captain's looking. We've been talking about it every day. It changes.
15 true vacancies plus all the other stuff.
Yeah, I think this morning we have 11 people that's out due to COVID. We've got 5 people pending testing with 15 vacancies. So the only problem we're really suffering with the sheriff's office is the jail. We are struggling in the jail to recruit and retain people. I think the last time we looked at it was about a net 3 gain for the entire year. Everybody, I think we've probably, I'm going to throw out a number, maybe hired 28 people and lost 25 of them. So we are struggling to recruit and retain.
Steve, is it the job, the money, or what? Yeah, I mean, it's just, I know we're in these troubled times, and I don't think a lot of people probably want to be a jailer in this, but what is it? What is the problem there?
I think it's a combination of those, all of those. We are coming back before the board in January asking for additional funding for detention officers. I think that people have an idea of what the jail is, and it's not really real life until they get there. There's things that you have to do that is dirty, nasty. This jail is it's modern in that it's 2 stories under one roof. I think that's the concept that you want to have with the new jails. But the difficulty is that when you're understaffed, those people are having to do much more work than you would do if you was fully staffed. So that means they're walking between probably 8, 9, sometimes 10 miles a day on concrete, going up steps. They're having to work double shifts.
Is that overtime then?
Yeah, they do get overtime after a certain period of time, but what we've learned is they don't care about the money anymore. They're just tired, and they just cannot continue to do it. The difficulty, the number one priority we're having now is trying to get female detention officers. We have recruited with pink paper. We've recruited on the street. We've had, we've set up information at the higher education and sheriff people. We just cannot retain, well, we can't hire and retain females. And in a jail, it's different in that you can only supervise females with females. And I've shared this with some of you. Once you reach a point that you do not have sufficient females to supervise females, now you're in violation of statute and the jail protocols. And we are on that borderline. We've lost 2 females COVID, and it gets to the point when you cannot operate the jail. after a period of time.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to see us try to address this issue in the future sometime in the next couple of months. I mean, I mean, if they're understaffed, why are they, is it pay or the sheriff shared some of the things, but I think it's a real problem, and I think it's a dangerous problem for the jailers too when they're understaffed. But it's just it's something we've been talking about for as long as I've been on the board about the jail and jails or whatever. But somehow it looks to me like we got to address this issue in the future.
And sir, I'll share one other thing that if I wasn't involved in the sheriff's office, I would think that it sounds crazy to think we asked for 1 year to start hiring people for the new jail. We have seen this happen over and over. We've got a neighbor that is struggling. They've been trying to hire for over a year. They cannot find staff themselves. It is something that I think sheriff's offices and Department of Corrections are struggling with, trying to find sufficient staffing and that meets our standards. And that's the difficulty. The pool is very shallow as far as applicants that we're getting. And we're spending a lot of time, obviously, I don't know how many people that the major has talked to. What we have to do in today's world is we ask people to fill out a packet. Almost never is that packet completely filled out, so it takes a lot of time. The major sits down with every one of those applicants. They go through the process of getting the packet filled out. Then when we put them in the background, that's a long time. That's a lot of hours spent out there. And we do appreciate you so much. You gave us the ability last year and this current fiscal year to contract with somebody to do those background investigations because those are time consuming. We do those and then some of them don't make it through the background. Again, about 90% of the people we hired just did not stay with us. They get in there and they say, I had no idea it was this difficult. So, and it's not just us. I mean, it's when I go to sheriff's conferences or talk to other sheriffs, I think a lot of sheriffs are struggling with the jails. That's the number one issue with sheriff's offices is trying to keep the jails staffed.
All right. Thank you, Steve. Any other questions? Commissioner Abley, I agree with you. But in listening to the counties around us, we are not alone in this. It's a difficult task. The environment in which we're in, COVID has certainly added more difficulty to it. Hopefully, we'll see a vaccine soon, and then we can at least get that piece out of the mix. But certainly, we need to give some consideration as to what maybe there's a magic wand out there somewhere, Steve. That
I don't think there's a person in this room that would want to be a jailer. First thing, the money, and then all the things you have to go through. And we've been talking about this for years and years, but I think it's at a point where we really need to either have some kind of discussion about it in the future or whatever. But I think it's going to be impossible and hard to get jailers in the future with all these things going on.
One thing I'd like to echo the manager, county manager, talking about, you got a lot of people working hard, and we do. I am so pleased with the deputies and the detention officers that have hung in there, and many of them have hung in there. Many of them, they see that phone number pop up on their phone when they're home, and a lot of them don't want to answer it because they know what it is. It's asking, please come in. We really like to have 11 on a shift. They started Saturday morning with 6. The captain worked this weekend, calling, begging people to come in. We did get enough for minimum to minimally staff the jail, but you just cannot continue to do that day after day.
all right. Thank you, gentlemen. Any other matters to discuss? Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
All right, this brings us to item 9, closed session. We do have a need for closed session this afternoon. Gentlemen, I'll entertain a motion to go into closed session to discuss threatened or pending litigation, to preserve the attorney-client privilege, to discuss economic development, matters and to discuss personnel matters as authorized by NCGS 143.318.11A 3, 4, 5, and 6. And I'll invite Alan Wood to join the board in closed session. And with that,
Mr. Chairman, question?
yes, sir.
On pre-agenda, you're not supposed to make decisions. Will there be a decision made from the closed session?
No, sir, don't anticipate any decision in closed session.
Okay, I make a motion to go into closed session.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That's all of us. We'll take just maybe a 2-minute or 3-minute break, and we'll reconvene in closed session, gentlemen. Thank you. To regular session, there's no motion, no decision made in closed session, and we have a motion from Maynard to adjourn. All in favor say aye. Opposed, no. Can't hear a soul, so we're adjourned.